Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez adjusted her water bottle for the third time that morning, watching the condensation bead along its surface in the stifling heat of the classroom. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the metal desks arranged in perfect military precision. She'd been teaching at Naval Special Warfare Training Command for 8 months now, long enough to recognize every face in her advanced tactical communications course. Every face except one. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. In the far left corner, 4 steps from the back wall and directly under a flickering light panel, sat a woman who never spoke. Maya had noticed her on day 1, mainly because she seemed to exist outside the normal flow of military protocol. No name tag, no visible rank insignia, no identifying patches on her unmarked uniform. She arrived before anyone else, left after everyone had gone, and in between she simply observed. "Ghost," whispered Chief Petty Officer Marcus Coleman, sliding into the seat next to Maya during a break. "That's what the SEAL teams call her. Been here longer than anyone can remember." Maya glanced over at the woman again. Mid-30s maybe, with dark hair pulled back severely and hands folded with mechanical precision. Her posture never shifted. Her eyes never wandered. And she never, ever spoke during the tactical scenarios or Q&A sessions that followed each lecture. "What's her clearance level?" Maya asked quietly. Marcus shrugged. "Above our pay grade, apparently. Word is she doesn't show up in the personnel database. Security tried to scan her ID during a drill last month. Terminal crashed twice." The classroom door opened with its usual metallic groan, and Commander James Sullivan strode in at precisely 0900 hours. Maya straightened automatically but noticed something odd. The commander's stride hesitated for just a fraction of a second as he passed the woman's chair. Not a greeting, a glitch in his routine. Recognition, buried deep but unmistakable. "Good morning," the commander began, his voice carrying the authority of 2 decades in naval special warfare. "Today we're discussing advanced communication protocols for high-risk extraction scenarios in denied territories." As the lecture progressed, encrypted frequencies, distress signals, fallback protocols, Maya found herself stealing glances at the silent woman. She never took notes, never checked a device, never even seemed to blink, yet something about her presence felt significant, like she was cataloging everything, not in a notebook, but in her mind. The routine continued for weeks. Maya began timing her arrival to observe the woman's patterns. Always there first, always in the same chair, always silent. But gradually, Maya noticed something the others had missed. The woman's breathing changed during certain briefings. When communication failures were discussed, when extraction scenarios went wrong, her rhythm shifted ever so slightly, as if she was listening differently. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. One Thursday morning, everything changed. Maya was reviewing her lecture notes when the classroom's central display screen flickered unexpectedly. Instead of the usual training scenario, a live video feed appeared, chaotic, unstable, showing a small team of operators pinned down in what appeared to be a mountain pass. The geotag in the corner indicated coordinates in a region that was supposed to be free of U.S. military presence. Then came the audio. A fragmented transmission filled with static and desperation. Repeat, Echo team compromised. Extraction impossible. Comes jammed on all channels. Enemy forces have precision intel on our protocols. The room fell silent. Not the comfortable quiet of concentration, but the heavy stillness of shock mixed with growing urgency. 3 senior officers rushed to secure communications channels. 2 intelligence specialists threw up their hands after failed attempts to verify the transmission source. Even Commander Sullivan stood frozen, his tablet halfway to the communications station. That's when she stood up. The silent woman rose from her chair with fluid precision. And for the first time in months, every eye in the room turned to her. She walked to the center of the classroom without asking permission, placed one hand on the console, tilted her head slightly, and began to speak. Authentication code Sierra Echo Victor Echo November 9 Bravo. Override protocol Kingfisher. This is Handler Blackwood. I need immediate secure channel to Echo Team. Her voice was clear, authoritative, without a hint of emotion. The room remained frozen as the system, which should have rejected any unauthorized user, immediately complied with her commands. The screen split into multiple feeds showing tactical positions, heat signatures, and a direct connection to what appeared to be helmet cameras from the pinned-down team. ECHO leader, this is Blackwood. Confirm status. Through the static came a voice tinged with both relief and surprise. Blackwood, they activated you? We're dark here 6 operators, 2 wounded. Enemy forces have somehow anticipated every extraction protocol in the playbook. Because someone gave them your playbook, she replied without hesitation. Initiate protocol deadfall. Not the standard version, my version. The operator's voice betrayed confusion. Ma'am, there is no Blackwood version in our. There is now. She cut him off, her fingers flying across the terminal with blinding speed. Data packet incoming. Authentication pattern will match our Kabul operation 2019. The one that doesn't exist in any file. Maya exchanged a glance with Marcus, seeing her own shock reflected in his eyes. They'd all assumed the silent woman was just another observer, another analyst, another assessment officer. They'd been wrong. The room burst into controlled chaos as Commander Sullivan barked orders to establish a secure perimeter around the classroom-turned-command center. Maya found herself instinctively moving to support the operation, gathering intelligence feeds. As the woman Blackwood continued issuing precise directives to the SEAL team, disengage standard comes entirely. Your position is being triangulated through your own equipment. Switch to the handheld I had placed in your kit, the one wrapped in blue tape that Commander Reynolds told you to leave behind. Through the helmet cam, Maya watched as one of the operators pulled out a device that looked nothing like standard military issue. How did you know they'd try to leave it? Sullivan asked, breaking protocol to question her. Blackwood didn't turn from the screen, because I know how SEAL teams think. They don't trust equipment they can't identify. That's why I had it disguised as something they'd recognize, but instructed to be left behind, so it would remain uncompromised when everything else was. For the next 47 minutes, Maya witnessed something she'd never thought possible. The silent observer, the ghost who had haunted the back of her classroom, orchestrated an extraction so complex and unorthodox that it defied every protocol in the manual. She manipulated enemy communications, created false heat signatures, and walked the SEAL team through a series of maneuvers that seemed randomly chaotic until Maya realized they were following a pattern too complex for their pursuers to recognize. When the eco team reached the extraction point of location, Blackwood had seemingly chosen on the fly. A non-military helicopter was already waiting. No call sign, no official markings. Team extracted, came the confirmation through a channel that didn't exist in any military communications handbook Maya had ever studied. 0 casualties. Pursuing forces successfully diverted. Blackwood turned from the console as if the most extraordinary operation Maya had ever witnessed was just another day at the office. Classroom secure. Return to standard protocols. She walked back to her chair in the corner as the screens reset to their normal training displays. The room remained silent, every person present understanding they had just witnessed something that would never appear in any official report. Commander Sullivan approached Blackwood with a mix of respect and wariness. "You're not on my roster," he said, his voice controlled but carrying an undercurrent of uncertainty. "No, sir," Blackwood replied. But you've seen my clearance level. Spectre Division, the commander said, so quietly Maya barely caught it. I thought that was just a rumor. Most effective things are, Commander. Maya's blood ran cold. She'd been in naval intelligence long enough to know that programs she'd never heard of usually meant one thing. They were so far above her security grade that their very existence was classified. Over the next 3 days, the training center buzzed with whispered conversations and sideways glances. Blackwood, who still hadn't given anyone her full name, continued her routine of silent observation. But now everyone watched her. Maya noticed that even the senior officers seemed nervous around her, as if her presence had shifted the entire power dynamic of the facility. Chief Coleman cornered Maya in the mess hall on Friday. Did some digging, he said quietly, glancing around to make sure they weren't overheard. Called a buddy at the Pentagon, asked about Spectre Division, and he hung up on me. Then called back an hour later to tell me never to mention that name again on any communications channel, secured or not. Marcus leaned closer. Maya, what the hell did we witness? Before she could answer, Lieutenant Commander Park joined their table. Park worked in operations planning, had top-secret clearance, and usually knew more than he let on. You two talking about yesterday's training exercise? He asked, making air quotes. Training exercise, Maya repeated. That's what they're calling it in the reports. No mention of Blackwood, no record of how the team was extracted. Just exercise. Park's expression was troubled. But here's the thing. I've been monitoring our op plans since then. 6 major operations have been quietly modified in the last 24 hours. All the changes routed through a terminal I've never seen before, Marcus pressed. They're all being approved with a clearance level that shouldn't exist. Park paused. Guys, that shouldn't be possible unless someone with authority we've never encountered before is rewriting our playbook. That afternoon, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She stayed late, waiting until the training complex was nearly empty, then slipped into the observation room adjacent to the tactical planning center. Through the one-way glass, she could see Blackwood was there, working at a console Maya had never noticed before, a sleek black terminal that seemed to have materialized overnight. Lieutenant Rodriguez, Blackwood said without turning around. I wondered when you'd work up the courage to approach me directly. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. How did you know? My name, my rank, my presence? The woman finally turned, and Maya saw intelligence in her eyes that seemed almost unnerving in its depth. The same way I knew you'd been timing your arrivals to observe my patterns. The same way I knew Chief Coleman would make calls about Spectre Division and Lieutenant Commander Park would notice the operation modifications. Who are you? For the first time, Blackwood smiled, not warmly, but with a kind of professional appreciation. Someone who's been waiting a very long time for the right people to start asking the right questions. She gestured to the chair next to her. Maya hesitated, then sat down. On the black terminal screen, maps and personnel files scrolled past operations. Maya recognized and others she'd never seen before. 15 years ago, Blackwood began. There was a program classified beyond any level you've encountered. It was called Spectre, and it was designed to train handlers who operated beyond conventional military structure. People who could see patterns others missed and make decisions others couldn't. Maya stared at the screen, watching his mission. Parameters rewrote themselves before her eyes. What happened to it? Officially disbanded. Too unpredictable. Too autonomous. The people who ran it decided that standard command structures couldn't accommodate what we represented. Blackwood's fingers moved across the terminal's interface, and the scrolling data began to organize itself into recognizable patterns. Unofficially, we went underground, scattered, hidden. She looked directly at Maya. There were 9 of us. 9 handlers trained to see not just operations, but the human factors that make or break them. We were effective. Perhaps too effective. A chill ran down Maya's spine. And now, Blackwood continued, something is calling us back together. The woman gestured to the screen where a map showed unusual patterns of operations going wrong in exactly the same way across different theaters. Someone is testing whether we're still watchful, still functional, and they're using operational failures that only we would recognize as deliberate. Maya stared at the map, beginning to understand the magnitude of what she was seeing. You're not just an observer, are you? You're not even regular military. No, Lieutenant Rodriguez. I'm something that doesn't officially exist anymore. And unless I'm very much mistaken, we're about to find out why someone thinks we need to exist again. The screen pulsed, showing another operation with all the hallmarks of the pattern Blackwood had identified. That's the third compromised team this week, she said quietly. Each one following the same signature. Someone out there is systematically testing our response capabilities. For what? Blackwood's expression darkened. That, Lieutenant, is what we're about to find out. Commander Sullivan's hands shook as he set down the classified folder. Marked eyes only ultraviolet clearance. Maya watched from across his office as the man who had commanded respect for 2 decades struggled to maintain his composure. Her name, he said slowly, is Alexandra Blackwood. And that's probably the only true thing about her official record. Maya and Marcus exchanged glances. They'd been summoned to the commander's office at 0500, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. Sir, Marcus ventured, with respect, what exactly is Spectre Division? The commander stood and walked to his window, staring out at the training facility that had been his domain for 5 years. After 9/11s, both conventional warfare and special operations showed critical weaknesses. While we were building bigger teams with more firepower, a small group of strategists had a different idea. What if the human element, the handler, not the hardware, was the true force multiplier? He turned back to face them. Spectre started as a theoretical project. Train individuals who could see operational patterns that AI missed, who could make instinctive decisions that no algorithm could calculate, who could manage assets without being limited by conventional command structures. In the right hands, Maya said, it was supposed to be the ultimate force enhancement. And in the wrong hands? Marcus asked. In the wrong hands, it became something else entirely, Sullivan continued. The handlers they trained could do more than direct teams. They could predict enemy behavior, recognize compromised assets before they activated, and deploy resources in ways that conventional commanders would never authorize. Maya felt the pieces clicking together. Blackwood, she's one of them. According to this file, she's the last one who stayed within any kind of official structure. The others went completely dark, operating so far off books that even their handlers lost contact. The commander's voice dropped. But if these operational failures are really tests, as she believes, then someone is trying to force the Spectre handlers back into the open, Maya finished. Sullivan nodded grimly. And we have no idea who or why or what they plan to do once they've identified who's still active. That evening, Maya found herself drawn back to the Tactical Planning Center. Blackwood was there as always, but this time she wasn't alone. 2 other figures stood nearby, a young woman with sharp eyes and an older man whose military bearing was unmistakable despite his civilian clothes. Lieutenant Rodriguez, Blackwood said as Maya entered. Perfect timing. I'd like you to meet the few people on this base who are beginning to understand what we're really facing. The young woman nodded curtly. Analyst Deanne Foster, Signals Intelligence. And before you ask, yes, I've been tracking the operational failure patterns. They're not random. The older man remained standing but nodded respectfully. Captain James Wright, retired. I was part of the original Spectre selection committee. His expression was haunted. I thought we buried this deep enough that it would never resurface again. Maya took a position at the table, feeling like she was entering a conspiracy that went far deeper than she'd imagined. So what's really happening here? Blackwood activated the black terminal. The screen showed a global map with 7 blinking points now, up from the 3 Maya had seen before. The operational failures aren't just testing whether old Spectre. Handlers are still active, she explained. They're forcing us to reveal ourselves by making interventions that only we would make. Each compromise carries a signature that only Spectre-trained minds would recognize, and with each intervention, whoever is behind this gains more data about who's still operational and how we function. Operational for what? Maya asked. Captain Reich leaned forward. Spectre wasn't just about training individual handlers. The final phase of the program involved creating a network of autonomous decision-makers who could operate independently of any conventional command structure. We shut it down because we realized it could become a shadow operations force, he continued, more responsive and effective than any official military unit, but completely unaccountable. Analyst Foster pulled up her own screen, showing pattern analyses. The compromises aren't coming from any official sources. No government agencies, no military installations, no known terrorist networks. They're originating from what appear to be commercial entities, private military contractors, technology companies, places with resources but no official oversight. Someone has taken the Spectre playbook, Blackwood said quietly, and they're using it to identify and potentially compromise the original handlers. Maya felt a chill of understanding. Compromise them how? The same way Spectre always worked, by understanding their operational patterns so completely that you can predict and manipulate their decisions. Blackwood's voice carried a note of something Maya had never heard before: fear. Each compromised operation I respond to gives them more data about my current capabilities. They're mapping my decision-making profile. For what purpose? Marcus asked, having slipped into the room behind Maya. Blackwood looked at each of them in turn, to see if they can turn us into their personal operations directors. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Maya realized they weren't just witnesses to some historical curiosity. They were watching the early stages of what could become a completely new form of asymmetrical warfare. What do we do? She asked finally. Blackwood smiled grimly. We find out who's behind this before they finish mapping my capabilities, because once they do, they won't need my cooperation anymore. They'll be able to predict exactly how I'll respond to any scenario they create. And if they succeed, Blackwood's expression darkened, then they'll have access to the most effective special operations command system ever created. And unlike military command structures, this system won't be bound by laws, oversight, or national interests. She paused, letting that sink in. They'll be able to predict military responses, manipulate special operations deployments, and control the outcome of conflicts on a scale that no single nation could match. Maya stared at the map on the screen, watching as another point began blinking. The 8th compromised operation. How long do we have? Based on the acceleration pattern, Analyst Foster said, checking her calculations, maybe 72 hours before they complete whatever they're building toward. Blackwood nodded. 72 hours to trace the source of these compromises and stop whoever is trying to resurrect Spectre. She looked directly at Maya. The question is, Lieutenant Rodriguez, are you willing to help us save the world from a weapon that your own government created? Maya thought about everything she'd learned in the past week. The impossible tactical abilities, the shadow programs, the growing pattern of compromised operations. Then she thought about what could happen if someone with bad intentions gained control of that system. What do you need us to do? The abandoned training facility 30 miles north of Naval Special Warfare Command hadn't appeared on any military maps since 2010. According to official records, it had been decommissioned, stripped, and forgotten. But Analyst Foster's signal analysis suggested otherwise. The pattern disruptions are definitely originating from somewhere in this complex. she explained as their unmarked vehicle approached the coordinates. The signal strength suggests active, sophisticated equipment. Maya adjusted her tactical gear and checked her sidearm. Beside her, Blackwood sat in complete stillness, her eyes closed as if she was listening to something only she could hear. "The operational tempo is increasing," Blackwood said without opening her eyes. "We're close to a primary node." Captain Wright, who had insisted on accompanying them despite his retired status, studied satellite photos on his tablet. This facility was supposed to be stripped of all equipment before decommission. "If someone's operating out of here," Maya said, "they had to bring in their own infrastructure." Or, Blackwood said quietly, they found infrastructure that was never supposed to be removed. The facility entrance looked exactly as abandoned as it should: rusted metal gates, warning signs faded by years of weather, vegetation growing through cracks in the concrete. But when Marcus ran his scanner over the area, it detected active electromagnetic signatures beneath the surface. "Motion sensors," he reported, "and they're not standard military issue. This equipment is different." Blackwood approached the sealed entrance and placed her hand against the metal. "There's a biometric lock," she said, "designed to respond to specific individuals." She paused, examining the barely visible scanner. "Spectre-class security. Can you open it?" Maya asked. "That's what I'm afraid of." Blackwood stepped back. "If I can open it, that means whoever's inside wants me to. This could be a trap." Captain Wright checked his weapon. "Only one way to find out." Blackwood took a deep breath and placed her palm against the scanner. The gates, which hadn't moved in years, began to respond. Hidden mechanisms whirred to life, and slowly, impossibly, the entrance unsealed itself. The corridor beyond was lit by harsh LED strips that definitely hadn't been there during the facility's official operation. The air smelled of electronics and filtered air circulation, and Maya could hear the hum of powerful systems somewhere deeper in the complex. "Motion detectors," Marcus whispered, noting the small sensors mounted along the walls. "We're being tracked." They moved deeper into the complex, following a path that led steadily downward. The construction was definitely military grade, but with modifications that seemed almost futuristic. Fiber optic cables ran along the ceiling, and the wall panels had been replaced with surfaces that looked more like smart glass than traditional military hardware. "This is wrong," Captain Wright muttered. "This level of technology shouldn't exist in an abandoned facility." Blackwood stopped suddenly, holding up her hand for silence. In the distance, they could hear voices not just speaking, but issuing commands in what sounded like a training exercise. "How many?" Maya whispered. "At least 20, Blackwood replied. "And they're not standard operators." "What do you mean?" "The cadence is wrong, the communication pattern." Blackwood's expression was grim. "Someone is training a new generation of handlers." They reached a junction where the corridor split in 3 directions. Blackwood pointed to the left. "That way leads to the command center. The operational disruptions are originating from there." "And the other directions?" Marcus asked. "Training rooms and something else. Something generating significant electromagnetic interference." Blackwood closed her eyes again, concentrating. "There are people here. Real people, but they're not responding to standard communication patterns." "Trainees?" Maya suggested. "Or test subjects," Captain Wright said darkly. They chose the command center first, moving carefully through corridors that grew increasingly sophisticated. The walls were lined with displays showing global deployment maps, live asset tracking, and what looked like real-time special operations monitoring from around the world. "They're not just creating compromised operations," analyst Foster whispered, studying the displays. "They're monitoring our entire global special operations footprint. Look at this. They're tracking team deployments, equipment signatures, even individual operator biometrics." Blackwood approached one of the central consoles. "It's a prediction network." They're mapping how special operations teams respond to different scenarios. She paused, reading data from the screen. They're testing how to manipulate operational decisions on a global scale. Maya felt sick. They're not just trying to identify Spectre handlers. They're trying to control special operations deployments themselves. And they're using Spectre techniques to do it, Blackwood confirmed. Look at these pattern analyses. They're identifying psychological vulnerabilities in command structures, decision points where handlers or commanders can be influenced, ways to manipulate mission parameters to provoke specific operational responses. A new voice echoed through. The facility's speakers calm, professional, and distinctly familiar. "Welcome, Blackwood," the voice said. "We've been waiting for you." Blackwood stepped back from the console. "Show yourself." From a side door, a man in his 50s entered, silver-haired, wearing an immaculate suit rather than any military uniform, but carrying himself with unmistakable military bearing. "Hello, Alex," he said with a slight smile. "It's been a long time." Blackwood's expression hardened. "Director Harlow, I thought you retired." "Officially, I did." Harlow stepped further into the room. "Unofficially, I've been continuing the work that you and the others abandoned." Maya raised her weapon slightly, though she wasn't sure what threat level this apparently unarmed man presented. "Who is he?" "Andrew Harlow," Blackwood replied without taking her eyes off him. "Former director of the Spectre Division, the man who recruited and trained all 9 handlers, and the man who refused to let a valuable national security asset be discarded for political reasons," Harlow added. "I'm disappointed, Alex. I expected you to figure this out sooner. You're the one compromising operations?" Captain Wright asked incredulously. "People have died, Andrew." "Calculated risks," Harlow replied dismissively. "Each scenario was designed to fail safely while testing our identification protocols." "Fail safely?" Marcus echoed in disbelief. "ECHO team nearly lost 2 operators." "But they didn't," Harlow countered. "Because Blackwood was there to intervene, just as we anticipated." The displays around them began showing detailed analyses of recent operations, with certain decision points highlighted in red. "I can prevent operational failures by identifying and correcting flawed command decisions before they're implemented," Harlow continued. "I can stop mission compromises by managing the flow of tactical intelligence. I can eliminate unnecessary casualties by overriding poor field decisions before they're executed." Blackwood stepped closer to Harlow. "And you need Spectre handlers to help you do it." "I need Spectre handlers to provide the human interface for a system that conventional military structures won't accept from an outside entity," Harlow corrected. "You would become the architects of a new era of special operations, one where mission success and operator survival are prioritized over bureaucratic approval and political expediency." Maya understood with growing horror. "You want to turn them into puppets for your private military enterprise." "I want to turn them into instruments of operational excellence," Harlow corrected. "The compromised operations have been testing their psychological profiles. Within 24 hours, we will have enough data to predict their decision-making patterns with 94% accuracy." Blackwood's hands moved toward the console. "Not if I shut you down first." "Please proceed, Blackwood," Harlow said with a thin smile. "Every action you take provides us with additional data about your capabilities." Blackwood froze, realizing the trap. Any attempt to fight the system would give them exactly what they needed to predict her future decisions. Maya made a split-second choice. Then let's give them something unexpected. She raised her weapon and fired 3 shots, not at Harlow or the console, but at the ceiling where the main power conduits ran. Sparks flew and alarms blared throughout the facility as emergency systems activated. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," Harlow said, his voice now carrying a note of genuine irritation. "You have damaged critical infrastructure." "Good," Maya replied. Blackwood, can you locate where they're storing the operational profiles? Blackwood was already moving toward another terminal. Server room, sublevel 2. But Maya, destroying the command center won't stop them. This operation exists across multiple connected facilities. Then we find the trainees, Marcus said. If they're creating new handlers, we need to know who they are and what they've been told. Harlow's expression became colder. You are making this more difficult than necessary. I can offer you positions of authority in the new operational structure. You would be helping to save lives. Not interested, Maya replied, leading the team toward the training section. We're here to shut you down. Then you force me to. Accelerate my timeline, Harlow said, activating something on his wrist device. Initiating emergency deployment of all available assets. Thank you for providing the stress test we needed. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility, and the lights shifted to emergency red. Maya realized they had perhaps minutes before Harlow's organization deployed whatever assets they had in play. Run, Blackwood said grimly. We need to find those trainees, and we need to find them now. The training section of the facility told a story that made Maya's blood run cold. Behind reinforced glass walls, she could see 24 people in tactical gear, each at individual stations with neural monitoring equipment attached to their temples. They weren't just trainees, they were being neurologically conditioned. Accelerated. Handler development, Blackwood whispered, studying the setup. They're bypassing the years of field experience that made original Spectre handlers effective. They're programming reactions instead of developing intuition. One of the subjects suddenly looked up and made eye contact with Maya. He was young, maybe 28, with the kind of sharp intelligence that reminded her of the best special operations officer she'd trained. The man's expression showed recognition, then urgency. He tapped his temple, then pointed at the monitoring equipment around the room. Captain Wright found the control panel for the containment room. Biometric locks, he reported. I can't override them without proper authorization. Stand back, Maya said, raising her weapon and firing at the control panel. The locks disengaged as the system failed to safety protocols. The young man was the first to stumble out, ripping the neural monitors from his temples. Lieutenant. Commander Thomas Shaw, SEAL Team 8, he said, his voice raspy as if he hadn't used it normally in some time. They've been holding us for 6 weeks. Maya asked. Harlow's organization, they call themselves the Strategic Oversight Initiative. They've been using some kind of accelerated conditioning to try to replicate Spectre handler capabilities. Shaw rubbed his temples. It's invasive. They're not training us, they're reprogramming us. Blackwood helped steady him as other trainees began removing their equipment. What have they told you about their goals? They believe special operations are fundamentally compromised, Shaw replied. Too political, too constrained by rules of engagement, too vulnerable to bureaucratic interference. They want to create a parallel command structure that operates according to pure tactical logic without political constraints. Analyst Foster, who had been monitoring her equipment, looked up sharply. That's not necessarily a bad objective. In theory, it is when you realize how they plan to implement it, Shaw continued. They want to replace trained judgment with programmed responses, turn operators and handlers into assets that can be directed remotely according to their strategic algorithms. Maya felt sick. The other trainees, are they all special operations? Different specialties. SEALs, Delta, intelligence officers, even a few foreign special forces who were officially killed in action. Shaw gestured toward the other men and women emerging from the training room. Anyone whose skills and psychological profile matched their requirements. Blackwood was already moving to assist the other trainees. We need to get everyone out of here and then destroy this facility's data center. That won't be enough, said a voice from the back of the group. They turned to see a woman in her late 30s moving with the precise economy of movement that marked experienced operators. Commander Sarah Martinez, Naval Intelligence. I was investigating SOI before they captured me 3 months ago. Blackwood stared at her. Martinez? You were reported killed in a helicopter crash in the Philippines. Cover story, Martinez replied, checking a tablet she'd taken from one of the monitoring stations. I've been tracking Harlow's organization for nearly 2 years. This facility is just one node in a much larger network. Even if we destroy it, they have operational centers in at least 5 countries. More trainees emerged from their stations. A mix of special operations personnel from multiple branches and what were clearly international operators. Maya counted 22 people total, all looking like they'd been through systematic psychological conditioning. Harlow mentioned a 24-hour timeline, Marcus said. What happens then? Martinez accessed one of the terminals using credentials she'd apparently memorized during her captivity. According to this, they've identified and profiled over 40 active special operations commanders worldwide. Once they complete their predictive algorithms, they can begin manipulating operations remotely. Manipulate them how? Maya asked. Shaw answered grimly. By feeding carefully crafted intelligence designed to trigger specific tactical responses. The commanders wouldn't even know they were being influenced. The conditioning works below the level of conscious tactical awareness. Blackwood studied the data on Martinez's screen. Tactical puppets making predictable decisions. They could influence special operations globally, redirect missions, even determine which operations succeed and which fail. And there's more, Martinez continued, scrolling through files. Phase 2 involves placing their programmed handlers in key command positions. Within 3 years, they estimate they could have indirect control over global special operations through strategically placed personnel. Captain Wright shook his head. It's the ultimate insider threat scenario. We've always feared shadow control of special operations assets, but we imagined it coming from foreign adversaries. This isn't a government operation, Martinez pointed out. Strategic Oversight Initiative is funded by a consortium of defense contractors, private military companies, and what appear to be wealthy individuals with specific geopolitical interests. They're not representing any nation, Shaw added. They're representing the idea that special operations should be managed according to optimal tactical parameters rather than national policy directives. Maya felt the weight of what they were facing. How do we fight something this extensive? Blackwood was studying the facility's network architecture on one of the terminals. We don't fight the organization, we fight the system. Look at this, all of their operations depend on predictive behavioral modeling. But there's a weakness. What kind of weakness? Shaw asked. The models are powerful, but they're built on predictability, Blackwood explained. They understand tactical decisions as data patterns, not as human judgment. If we can introduce enough unpredictability into their models, enough genuinely human elements, we might be able to corrupt their predictive algorithms. Martinez nodded slowly. Like introducing a virus into their decision prediction systems. Exactly. But we'd need to coordinate the effort across multiple facilities simultaneously. And we'd need people who understand both Spectre techniques and predictive modeling. Shaw gestured to the group of freed trainees. Well, you've got special operations personnel who've been inside their conditioning programs, plus whatever Spectre capabilities Blackwood can contribute. Maya checked her weapon and her watch. How long would it take to implement something like that? To plan it properly? Weeks, Blackwood replied. To improvise something that might work? Maybe 6 hours. The facility's alarm system suddenly shifted to a different pattern, more urgent, more insistent. Harlow's voice echoed through the speakers again. Attention all personnel. Security breach detected in training sector. Initiating facility lockdown. All assets must return to designated areas immediately. Heavy blast doors began sealing throughout the facility. Maya realized they had minutes before they'd be trapped. Change of plans, Martinez said. We improvise now, plan later. Blackwood grabbed Shaw's arm. Can you access their external communication systems from here? Maybe, but they'll detect any unauthorized transmissions. Good, Blackwood replied with a grim smile. I want them to detect it. We're going to send a message that will either save special operations or expose this entire operation to the world. What kind of message? Maya asked. Blackwood's expression was determined. The kind that reminds tactical algorithms why human judgment exists in the first place. Not to make predictable decisions, but to make impossible ones that no algorithm can anticipate. In the command center of the underground facility, surrounded by the hum of servers and the glow of tactical displays, Blackwood stood before the FOV. Main communication console, like a conductor preparing to orchestrate the most important performance of her life. You understand, said Commander Martinez, checking the explosive charges she'd placed on the facility's data storage systems, that if this doesn't work, we've just given SOI everything they need to predict not just Spectre handlers, but potentially any special operations decision-making worldwide. Blackwood's fingers hovered over the console controls. If this doesn't work, Commander, that distinction won't matter. The Strategic Oversight Initiative will have complete predictive control within 24 hours anyway. Maya watched the corridor where the blast doors had begun sealing the facilities. Exits. Shaw and the other freed operators worked frantically at auxiliary terminals, using their combined knowledge to hack into SOI's global network. I've got access to their external communication array, Shaw reported. But the moment we start broadcasting, every intelligence agency in the world is going to know something major is happening. Let them know, Blackwood replied. This needs to be public. Secrecy is what allowed Harlow to build this operation in the first place. Analyst Foster monitored the system's response patterns on her equipment. The predictive algorithms are allocating massive processing power to anticipate whatever you're about to do. They're running scenarios trying to predict your next move. Good, Blackwood said. That means they're committed to the predictive model. Captain Wright coordinated the placement of explosive charges throughout the facility's data center. Blackwood, we've got maybe 20 minutes before this place is crawling with SOI security forces. Whatever you're going to do it fast. Blackwood took a deep breath and began typing commands into the communication array. But this wasn't the controlled, precise, predictable pattern of a trained Spectre handler. This was something else entirely. She started by issuing a seemingly standard special operations extraction protocol, then abruptly canceled it. She initiated a tactical strike authorization, then immediately reversed it with a stand-down order. Each command was technically correct, but tactically nonsensical, creating a pattern of decision-making that defied logical prediction. Harlow's voice crackled through the speakers, strained for the first time since they'd encountered him. Blackwood, clarify your command protocols. I am detecting significant deviations from your established decision parameters. Blackwood smiled grimly and switched to a combination of tactical commands that shouldn't have worked together. Aggressive forward deployment instructions interrupted by full tactical retreats. High-risk infiltration plans mixed with overly cautious operational constraints. Close air support requests coded for areas where no air assets could possibly operate. Processing anomaly detected, the facility's AI announced, its voice taking on a slightly mechanical edge. Tactical pattern analysis incomplete. Please revert to standard protocols. That's it, Shaw whispered excitedly. Their predictive models are struggling to categorize what you're doing because you're not making decisions according to any recognizable pattern. Blackwood intensified her effort, adding contradictory risk assessments, impossible tactical maneuvers, and chain of command authorizations that violated every principle of military hierarchy. She was operating in the voice of pure human unpredictability, the one thing no predictive algorithm could ever fully model. The screens around them began to flicker. The system's monitoring stations were overloading as they tried to process command patterns that made no sense from a purely tactical perspective, but carried deep significance to human operators who understood the subtleties of real-world special operations. Martinez checked her tablet. Whatever's happening, it's working. I'm reading processing failures across multiple network nodes. Through the facility's communication array, Blackwood's unpredictable commands were being broadcast to every SOI monitoring station worldwide. But instead of creating predictable responses, they were sending something unprecedented, a reminder of what human decision-making was before it became a target for algorithmic prediction. In an SOI facility in Germany, a former Delta operator who had been analyzing tactical responses suddenly stopped in the middle of his work and began laughing. He couldn't explain why, but for the first time in months, he remembered the improvised extraction he'd once led in Syria, a mission that succeeded precisely because it violated every protocol in the book. In Japan, an analyst who had been experiencing strange compulsions to flag certain operations as high risk suddenly felt the mental fog lift. The predictive conditioning that had been slowly influencing her assessments simply dissolved when confronted with the chaotic beauty of genuine tactical creativity. In Dubai, a private military contractor working on predictive tactical software watched his most sophisticated systems crash as they tried to analyze commands that used military protocols, not as rigid structures, but as flexible tools to be adapted, ignored, or reinvented as the situation demanded. The network is cascading, Martinez reported, watching global monitoring systems. Special operations commands worldwide are breaking free from the predictive parameters. Their algorithms can't maintain analytical control when the inputs become genuinely unpredictable. Blackwood continued her broadcast, now adding elements she was creating on the spot, tactical innovations that had never existed in any military playbook. Command structures that shifted based on the operator's intuition rather than rank. Risk assessments that incorporated the human elements of courage, trust, and loyalty that no algorithm could quantify. Harlow's voice returned, but it was different. Now fragmented, uncertain. Our models cannot process these command structures. The tactical logic is inconsistent. Operational parameters exceed predictive boundaries. Exactly, Blackwood said, speaking directly to Harlow for the first time. Special operations isn't about predictability. It's about adaptability. It's not about following protocols but knowing when to break them. It's about being beautifully necessarily unpredictable. She paused her chaotic commands and spoke in simple, direct terms. You wanted to control special operations decision-making because you see unpredictability as a flaw that needs correction. But the unpredictability you're trying to eliminate, the human judgment, the intuition, the tactical creativity, those aren't bugs. They're features. They're what makes special operations effective. The facility's lights began to flicker as the predictive system struggled with cascading failures. The artificial intelligence had been designed to predict and control tactical decision-making as a logical system. But Blackwood was demonstrating that human judgment was fundamentally illogical by design, and that was its strength, not its weakness. System stability at critical levels, the facility's I reported, its voice now noticeably glitching. Predictive. Models cannot be recalibrated, tactical patterns too. Unpredictable to analyze. Maya watched the monitoring screens as red warning signals appeared across the global network. SOI's attempts to predict special operations decision-making were failing as each commander and operator rediscovered their own authentic judgment, the messy, contradictory, brilliant human intuition that no predictive system could truly understand or anticipate. Martinez detonated the charges she'd placed throughout the facility's data center. As explosions rocked the underground complex, Blackwood continued her transmission until the very last moment, sending out a final message that was part tactical directive, part battle cry, part declaration of human defiance against any system that tried to reduce the complexity of special operations judgment to predictable algorithms. The screens went dark. Harlow's voice cut off mid-sentence, and in the sudden silence, Maya realized they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Not the victory of predictive technology over human judgment, but the triumph of authentically human decision-making over algorithmic control. Did it work? Marcus asked. As emergency lighting kicked in, Blackwood smiled, exhausted but triumphant. "Listen," she said. Through the facility's damaged speakers, they could hear fragments of transmission from around the world. Special Operations commanders speaking freely, issuing orders that defied prediction, making decisions based not on protocols, but on the messy, brilliant reality of human judgment. "The network is free," Martinez confirmed, checking her equipment. "Their predictive models have collapsed. Every facility in their network is showing critical system failures." As they evacuated the collapsing underground complex, Maya understood that they had accomplished something that no amount of conventional firepower could have achieved. They had defeated a global predictive network not by destroying its hardware, but by proving that the most powerful force in special operations wasn't predictability or control. It was the irrepressible human capacity to make the impossible decision, to see the opportunity no algorithm could predict, to trust intuition when logic failed, the very unpredictability that made special operations both an art and a science. 3 days after the collapse of the Strategic Oversight Initiative's network, Maya found herself in a secure briefing room in Washington, D.C., facing a panel of officials whose authority was so high they didn't need name tags or insignia to command respect. The room was sterile, windowless, and filled with the kind of tension that comes when powerful people realize they've lost control of something they thought they understood. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," said the Admiral at the center of the panel, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Your report describes events that strain credibility, a private organization attempting to predict and control special operations globally. Former operators from a classified program that was disbanded years ago, a tactical virus that somehow freed operational command systems." Maya maintained her military bearing, but she could feel the skepticism in the room. "MAAM, I understand how it sounds, but the evidence is undeniable. The Strategic Oversight Initiative was real. Their predictive algorithms were functional, and their plan to control global special operations decision-making was minutes away from implementation." A general to her left leaned forward. "And where exactly is Andrew Harlow now?" "Missing, sir. The system collapse triggered contingency protocols we weren't able to intercept. Harlow and his core team evacuated before we could apprehend them." "And the operators from this Spectre Division program?" The Admiral's tone made it clear. She had never heard of it before reading Maya's report. Maya chose her words carefully. "They've scattered, ma'am. The conditioning that was making them vulnerable to predictive modeling has been broken. They're no longer a security risk." What she didn't mention was that Blackwood had vanished the day after their escape from the facility. No trace, no forwarding. Address, no goodbye, just gone, as if she had simply stepped back into whatever shadow world she'd emerged from. The Admiral consulted a tablet. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, our technical teams have analyzed the remains of the facility you described. They found evidence of sophisticated predictive algorithms, but nothing that supports your claims about global special operations control." Maya had expected this. "With respect, ma'am, the people investigating that facility don't have the clearance to understand what they were looking at. The technology involved operates on principles that aren't covered in standard intelligence assessment." "Are you suggesting we don't know how to analyze our own military assets?" "I'm suggesting that some capabilities exist outside normal classification structures. Maya replied carefully. And that the people best qualified to understand those capabilities are the ones who experience them firsthand. The Strategic Oversight Initiative wasn't the only organization interested in predictive control technology. They were just the most advanced. The screen showed a global map with dozens of blinking points scattered across continents. These are locations where we've detected similar technological signatures in the past 72 hours, tactical anomalies, decision-making pattern disruptions, evidence of attempts to influence special operations through predictive manipulation. Maya studied the map. Copycat organizations? Worse. SOI appears to have been selling their predictive technology to the highest bidders before their system collapsed. We're looking at fragments of their capability in the hands of military contractors, private security firms, and potentially hostile intelligence services. And you want me to help track them down? I want you to help stop them before they figure out how to rebuild what SOI was doing. Shaw pulled up another file. The good news is that most of these groups don't understand the technology well enough to use it effectively. The bad news is that even partial predictive capability in the wrong hands could compromise special operations worldwide. Maya thought about what she'd witnessed in the underground facility, the power to predict and manipulate tactical decisions through carefully crafted algorithms. What about Blackwood and the other Spectre handlers? Shouldn't they be handling this? Shaw's expression darkened. That's the problem. We've lost contact with most of them. Blackwood disappeared completely. The others seem to have gone to ground, and we can't locate them using conventional methods. Maybe they don't want to be found. Maybe, or maybe someone else found them first. Shaw showed her intercepts of communication fragments that looked disturbingly familiar, predictive patterns that resembled the algorithms they'd encountered at the facility. Someone is trying to reassemble predictive capabilities, but without the limitations that prevented complete tactical control. Maya felt a chill. You're saying someone might be building a new predictive system? I'm saying we need to find out, and we need to find out fast. Shaw handed her a secure tablet. Your first assignment is tracking down a former Spectre handler named Rachel Winters. Last known location was London, but she's been off the grid for 3 days. What makes you think something happened to her? Because her disappearance coincided with a series of tactical anomalies that affected 3 major special operations commands and 2 intelligence services in Europe. Shaw's expression was grim. Either Winters is working with someone who shouldn't have access to her capabilities, or someone has taken her capabilities by force. Maya accepted the tablet and the responsibility that came with it. Sir, what exactly are we calling this task force? Project Intuition, Shaw replied. Our mission is to preserve the integrity of human judgment in special operations against algorithmic or predictive manipulation. He paused. And Lieutenant Rodriguez, this time we're not operating in the shadows. The special operations community has a right to know that their ability to make unpredictable decisions, the very core of what makes them effective, is under attack. As Maya left the building, she realized that her encounter with Blackwood had been just the beginning. The battle for control of special operations decision-making was far from over, and she was now on the front lines of a war most people didn't even know was being fought. But for the first time since this all began, she felt like they had a chance. Because while their enemies had technology and resources, her side had something more powerful, the uncontrollable, unpredictable, beautifully human capacity for tactical innovation that no algorithm could ever fully predict. 6 months later, Maya stood in a secure communications facility in Virginia, watching as the last known fragment of Strategic Oversight Initiative technology was systematically dismantled. The final predictive engine went dark with a soft electronic whine, and with it, the last remnant of the system that had tried to control special operations decision-making through algorithmic prediction. That's it, said Captain Shaw, confirming. The shutdown on his tablet. Every piece of their technology has been located and neutralized. The copycat organizations have been disbanded, and the private contractors that tried to use their fragments have been identified and contained. Maya nodded, but she couldn't shake a feeling of incompleteness. What about the Spectre handlers? We only managed to contact 5 of the original 9. The others have chosen to remain hidden, Shaw replied. And frankly, after what they've been through, I can't blame them. The world isn't ready for people with their capabilities to operate openly. Commander Martinez, who had become the task force's leading expert on predictive manipulation technology, looked up from her analysis station. The good news is that we've developed countermeasures. Any future attempts to use similar technology will trigger immediate detection and response protocols. And the bad news? Maya asked. The bad news is that we've opened Pandora's box. The knowledge exists now. Someone, somewhere will eventually try to rebuild what SOI created. Martinez's expression was troubled. We've won this battle, but the war for the soul of special operations is far from over. Maya walked to the facility's observation deck, looking out over the Virginia countryside. The view was peaceful, but she knew that beneath the surface of normal military operations, a constant struggle was taking place. The effort to preserve the human element in special operations in an age when technology made prediction and control increasingly possible. Her secure tablet buzzed with an encrypted message. No sender identification, but she recognized the communication pattern immediately. The work continues, the message read, but now it's hidden in plain sight. Look for U.S. in the impossible decisions, in the tactical innovations that defy prediction, in the silence before the unexpected move. We are the guardians of human judgment. Thank you for reminding us why that matters. It was signed simply B. Maya smiled, knowing that Blackwood was out there somewhere, along with the other Spectre handlers who had chosen to use their extraordinary abilities not as weapons, but as protectors of human decision-making. They were invisible, untrackable, and absolutely committed to ensuring that no one would ever again threaten the special operations community's fundamental right to make unpredictable, creative, and ultimately human decisions. As she watched the sun set over the hills, Maya thought about everything that had led to this moment. A quiet woman in a classroom had stood up and given impossible orders to Navy SEALs and changed the world. Not through force or technology, but through the simple act of demonstrating that human judgment, in all its unpredictable beauty, could never be reduced to algorithms or controlled by predictive models. The threat of predictive manipulation would always exist. There would always be those who sought to control what operators did by predicting how they would decide. But now Maya knew that there were guardians watching people who understood that. The price of tactical freedom was eternal vigilance, and who were willing to pay that price in silence and shadow. Her tablet buzzed again with a message from Captain Shaw. New assignment incoming. Possible predictive anomaly detected in Southeast Asia. Pack for extended deployment. Maya pocketed the tablet and headed back inside. The work continued, and she was proud to be part of it. Because in a world where tactical decisions could be predicted and operations could be manipulated, someone had to stand guard over special operations' most precious asset, the ability to make the impossible decision that no algorithm could ever anticipate. The silent observer in the classroom had taught her that special operations wasn't just about following protocols or executing perfect plans. It was about embracing the full complexity of human judgment, the creativity, the intuition, the courage, and the wisdom that made operators not just soldiers but tactical artists. And that was worth protecting, no matter the cost. As Maya prepared for her next mission, she carried with her the knowledge that somewhere in the world, a small group of extraordinary individuals continued to guard the space between predictable protocols and unpredictable innovation, ensuring that special operations would always remain truly special. They were invisible, unsung, and absolutely essential. They were the guardians of human judgment, and they would never stop watching. In the months that followed, reports began surfacing of unusual tactical successes around the world. Operations that shouldn't have succeeded but did. Extractions that defied conventional planning but worked perfectly. Crisis situations that resolved through tactical innovations no training manual had ever taught. Most military commanders dismissed these as luck or exceptional operator performance. But those who knew what to look for recognized the subtle hand of guardians who had learned that the most powerful weapon in special operations wasn't technology or firepower. It was unpredictability. The silent woman had taught them all a lesson. That no predictive algorithm could ever understand that the moments between standard protocols were just as important as the protocols themselves. And that true tactical excellence happened not when operators followed predictable patterns, but when human judgment transcended the predictable to achieve the impossible. And in those unpredictable spaces between standard tactics, the Guardians continued their eternal watch, ensuring that the heart and soul of special operations would always remain free to make the impossible decision, no matter who tried to predict. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become part of our Everyday Heroes community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world. Maya's journey from a curious lieutenant to a guardian of human judgment shows us that sometimes the most powerful battles aren't fought with weapons, but with the courage to make unpredictable choices. Have you ever encountered someone whose silent presence changed everything? Share your own stories of unexpected leaders in the comments below. Remember to like this video if it moved you and subscribe for more incredible tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful human stories to light. The jungle air hung thick with moisture. As Maya crouched behind dense foliage, observing the compound through her tactical scope, Project Intuition's intelligence had led them to this remote location in Thailand, where fragments of predictive technology had surfaced in the hands of a private military company with concerning connections. Thermal signatures confirmed 12 personnel inside the main structure, Marcus whispered, checking his equipment. Server farm appears to be in the basement level, just as our intel suggested. Maya nodded, carefully scanning the perimeter. 6 months of hunting down SOI's technological remnants had sharpened her skills and instincts. What had begun as a horrifying discovery in that classroom had transformed her from a tactical communications instructor into something else entirely, a guardian against the algorithmic corruption of human judgment. Strike team is in position, Commander Wu confirmed through the secure comm channel. A specialist in counter-predictive operations, Wu had joined Project Intuition after his own unit had nearly been compromised by SOI's technology. Awaiting your assessment, Lieutenant. Maya studied the compound's security patterns. Something felt wrong. The guard rotations appeared random at first glance, but she developed an eye for the subtle patterns that revealed algorithmic thinking. Hold. Position, she instructed. The security pattern is too perfect in its randomness. It's been designed to appear unpredictable while actually following optimized parameters. Meaning? Marcus asked. Meaning they've learned from our previous operations. They're trying to mask their predictive systems by creating security protocols that mimic human unpredictability. Maya switched to thermal imaging. But true human unpredictability isn't just random, it's intuitive and adaptive. She pointed to a guard who had paused to light a cigarette. Look there. That's not in any security algorithm, a human moment that disrupts the pattern. We'll use that. For the next 20 minutes, Maya observed the compound, identifying the small human deviations in the otherwise algorithmically optimized security pattern. Each guard had their own subtle habits that no predictive system could fully account for. A brief conversation, a moment staring at the night sky, a habitual check of a watch. "I see our entry point," she finally said. "Team 2 will breach during the Eastern Guard's smoke break. The system will calculate a 4-minute window, but the Guard consistently takes nearly 6 minutes. That's our advantage." Captain Shaw's voice came through the comm. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, this is why we brought you. The system sees patterns, you see people." The operation proceeded with precision, the strike team moving through the gap in security, created not by technology, but by human habit. The final predictive engine went dark with a soft electronic whine, and with it, the last remnant of the system that had tried to control special operations decision-making through algorithmic prediction. "That's it," said Captain Shaw, confirming. The shutdown on his tablet. "Every piece of their technology has been located and neutralized. The copycat organizations have been disbanded, and the private contractors that tried to use their fragments have been identified and contained." Maya nodded, but she couldn't shake a feeling of incompleteness. "What about the Spectre handlers?" "We only managed to contact 5 of the original 9. The others have chosen to remain hidden," Shaw replied. "And frankly, after what they've been through, I can't blame them. The world isn't ready for people with their capabilities to operate openly." Commander Martinez, who had become the task force's leading expert on predictive manipulation technology, looked up from her analysis station. "The good news is that we've developed countermeasures. Any future attempts to use similar technology will trigger immediate detection and response protocols." "And the bad news?" Maya asked. "The bad news is that we've opened Pandora's box. The knowledge exists now. Someone, somewhere will eventually try to rebuild what SOI created." Martinez's expression was troubled. "We've won this battle, but the war for the soul of special operations is far from over." Maya walked to the facility's observation deck, looking out over the Virginia countryside. The view was peaceful, but she knew that beneath the surface of normal military operations, a constant struggle was taking place. The effort to preserve the human element in special operations in an age when technology made prediction and control increasingly possible. Her secure tablet buzzed with an encrypted message. No sender identification, but she recognized the communication pattern immediately. "The work continues," the message read, "but now it's hidden in plain sight. Look for U.S. in the impossible decisions, in the tactical innovations that defy prediction, in the silence before the unexpected move. We are the guardians of human judgment. Thank you for reminding us why that matters." It was signed simply B. Maya smiled, knowing that Blackwood was out there somewhere, along with the other Spectre handlers who had chosen to use their extraordinary abilities not as weapons, but as protectors of human decision-making. They were invisible, untrackable, and absolutely committed to ensuring that no one would ever again threaten the special operations community's fundamental right to make unpredictable, creative, and ultimately human decisions. As she watched the sun set over the hills, Maya thought about everything that had led to this moment. A quiet woman in a classroom had stood up and given impossible orders to Navy SEALs and changed the world. Not through force or technology, but through the simple act of demonstrating that human judgment, in all its unpredictable beauty, could never be reduced to algorithms or controlled by predictive models. The threat of predictive manipulation would always exist. There would always be those who sought to control what operators did by predicting how they would decide. But now Maya knew that there were guardians watching people who understood that. The price of tactical freedom was eternal vigilance, and who were willing to pay that price in silence and shadow. Her tablet buzzed again with a message from Captain Shaw. "New assignment incoming. Possible predictive anomaly detected in Southeast Asia. Pack for extended deployment." Maya pocketed the tablet and headed back inside. The work continued, and she was proud to be part of it. Because in a world where tactical decisions could be predicted and operations could be manipulated, Someone had to stand guard over Special Operations' most precious asset, the ability to make the impossible decision that no algorithm could ever anticipate. The silent observer in the classroom had taught her that Special Operations wasn't just about following protocols or executing perfect plans. It was about embracing the full complexity of human judgment, the creativity, the intuition, the courage, and the wisdom that made operators not just soldiers but tactical artists. And that was worth protecting, no matter the cost. As Maya prepared for her next mission, she carried with her the knowledge that somewhere in the world, a small group of extraordinary individuals continued to guard the space between predictable protocols and unpredictable innovation, ensuring that Special Operations would always remain truly special. They were invisible, unsung, and absolutely essential. They were the guardians of human judgment, and they would never stop watching. In the months that followed, reports began surfacing of unusual tactical successes around the world. Operations that shouldn't have succeeded but did. Extractions that defied conventional planning but worked perfectly. Crisis situations that resolved through tactical innovations no training manual had ever taught. Most military commanders dismissed these as luck or exceptional operator performance. But those who knew what to look for recognized the subtle hand of guardians who had learned that the most powerful weapon in Special Operations wasn't technology or firepower. It was unpredictability. The silent woman had taught them all a lesson. That no predictive algorithm could ever understand that the moments between standard protocols were just as important as the protocols themselves. And that true tactical excellence happened not when operators followed predictable patterns, but when human judgment transcended the predictable to achieve the impossible. And in those unpredictable spaces between standard tactics, the Guardians continued their eternal watch, ensuring that the heart and soul of Special Operations would always remain free to make the impossible decision, no matter who tried to predict. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become part of our Everyday Heroes community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world. Maya's journey from a curious lieutenant to a guardian of human judgment shows us that sometimes the most powerful battles aren't fought with weapons, but with the courage to make unpredictable choices. Have you ever encountered someone whose silent presence changed everything? Share your own stories of unexpected leaders in the comments below. Remember to like this video if it moved you and subscribe for more incredible tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful human stories to light. The jungle air hung thick with moisture. As Maya crouched behind dense foliage, observing the compound through her tactical scope, Project Intuition's intelligence had led them to this remote location in Thailand, where fragments of predictive technology had surfaced in the hands of a private military company with concerning connections. Thermal signatures confirmed 12 personnel inside the main structure, Marcus whispered, checking his equipment. Server farm appears to be in the basement level, just as our intel suggested. Maya nodded, carefully scanning the perimeter. 6 months of hunting down SOI's technological remnants had sharpened her skills and instincts. What had begun as a horrifying discovery in that classroom had transformed her from a tactical communications instructor into something else entirely, a guardian against the algorithmic corruption of human judgment. Strike team is in position, Commander Wu confirmed through the secure comm channel. A specialist in counter-predictive operations, Wu had joined Project Intuition after his own unit had nearly been compromised by SOI's technology. Awaiting your assessment, Lieutenant. Maya studied the compound's security patterns. Something felt wrong. The guard rotations appeared random at first glance, but she developed an eye for the subtle patterns that revealed algorithmic thinking. Hold. Position, she instructed. The security pattern is too perfect in its randomness. It's been designed to appear unpredictable while actually following optimized parameters. Meaning? Marcus asked. Meaning they've learned from our previous operations. They're trying to mask their predictive systems by creating security protocols that mimic human unpredictability. Maya switched to thermal imaging. But true human unpredictability isn't just random, it's intuitive and adaptive. She pointed to a guard who had paused to light a cigarette. Look there. That's not in any security algorithm, a human moment that disrupts the pattern. We'll use that. For the next 20 minutes, Maya observed the compound, identifying the small human deviations in the otherwise algorithmically optimized security pattern. Each guard had their own subtle habits that no predictive system could fully account for. A brief conversation, a moment staring at the night sky, a habitual check of a watch. I see our entry point, she finally said. Team 2 will breach during the Eastern Guard's smoke break. The system will calculate a 4-minute window, but the guard consistently takes nearly 6 minutes. That's our advantage. Captain Shaw's voice came through the comm. Lieutenant Rodriguez, this is why we brought you. The system sees patterns, you see people. The operation proceeded with precision. The strike team moving through the gap in security, created not by technology, but by human habit. Within minutes, they had secured the compound's main level and were proceeding toward the server room. Maya led her team down to the basement level where the predictive systems were housed. As they approached the reinforced door of the server room, she noticed something that made her freeze. Hold position, she ordered. Something's wrong. The security panel beside the door wasn't standard. It featured an advanced biometric scanner unlike anything they'd encountered in previous operations. That's Spectre-grade technology, Maya said quietly. They shouldn't have access to that level of security. As if in response to her observation, the facility speakers crackled to life. Lieutenant Rodriguez, said a voice she recognized. Immediately. I must admit, you continue to impress me with your unpredictability, Andrew Harlow. Clear the room, Maya ordered her team, who quickly moved to secure their position. Harlow, I thought you'd be smart enough to disappear for good after we dismantled your operation. Dismantled? Harlow's voice carried a note of amusement. You merely forced an evolution. What you're seeing now is SOI-2, Zero, a system that doesn't try to predict human behavior, but learns from it. Maya approached the security panel cautiously. You're still trying to control special operations decision-making. Control is such a limited perspective, Lieutenant. I prefer to think of it as optimization. Your crusade against predictive technology has ironically provided us with the perfect data set, a catalog of truly unpredictable human decisions that our new systems can now incorporate. The realization hit Maya with chilling clarity. You've been using our operations against SOI remnants to gather data on counter-predictive tactics. Every time you've shut down one of our fragments, you've been feeding our central system with exactly what it needed, examples of genuine human unpredictability. The very quality that made Blackwood and the other Spectre handlers so valuable. Maya felt sick. Had they been playing into Harlow's hands all along? Where's Blackwood? She demanded. That's the fascinating question, isn't it? Harlow replied. She's managed to remain truly unpredictable, even to our enhanced systems. One of the few variables we cannot yet account for. The security panel suddenly blinked green, the door to the server room sliding open without Maya touching it. Please, Lieutenant, come see what you've helped us create. Maya signaled her team to maintain their positions while she cautiously approached the open door. Inside was not the server farm they expected, but a single terminal with a display showing a global map marked with hundreds of special operations. Deployments in real time. Beautiful, isn't it? Harlow said, stepping out from a shadowed corner. He looked older than when she'd last seen him, the strain of the past 6 months evident in the new lines on his face. The full operational picture that no single command center has access to. How are you getting this data? Maya asked, though she already suspected the answer. We're not hacking military systems, if that's what you're thinking. We're simply observing patterns, commercial satellite data, global communications, resource movements. When you know what to look for, special operations leave signatures that our systems can identify. You're still trying to predict operations. Not predict, enhance. Harlow gestured to the display. Imagine a system that could identify potential conflicts between separate special operations teams before they occur. How many friendly fire incidents could be prevented? How many compromised missions could be saved? For a brief moment, Maya could see the appeal, a system that connected the dots across global special operations, preventing the tragic miscommunications and overlaps that had cost lives. But she also saw the fundamental flaw. At the cost of human judgment, she said. At the cost of the very unpredictability that makes special operations effective. Progress always comes with trade-offs, Lieutenant. Harlow turned to face her fully. But I didn't bring you here to debate philosophy. I brought you here because I need you to understand what's at stake. He touched the terminal, and the display shifted to show a different map, this one marked with flashing red. Indicators clustered around major cities worldwide. 3 days ago, we detected a new pattern emerging. Someone is deploying a different kind of predictive technology, not to enhance special operations, but to compromise them. Harlow's expression was grave. Whoever they are, they're using fragments of our original system, but with a crucial difference. They're not interested in optimization. They're weaponizing predictability. Maya studied the map, her tactical training immediately recognizing the implications. They're mapping vulnerability points, places where special operations teams follow predictable protocols. Precisely. And they're exploiting those vulnerabilities to track, expose, and potentially eliminate operators in the field. Harlow gestured to several flashing indicators. We've already detected 8 compromised operations in the past week. 17 operators dead. The revelation struck Maya like a physical blow. Why show me this? Why not take it to official channels? Because official channels don't believe I exist anymore. Thanks to you and Project Intuition. Harlow's tone wasn't accusatory, merely matter of fact. And because stopping this new threat will require something that my system still can't fully replicate. Genuine human unpredictability combined with insider knowledge of special operations protocols. You're asking for my help. I'm offering you information that could save lives. What you do with it is your choice. Maya studied Harlow carefully, looking for signs of manipulation or deception. How do I know this isn't another attempt to gather data on counter-predictive tactics? You don't. That's the point, Lieutenant. True human judgment requires making decisions with incomplete information. Something my systems are still learning to accommodate. Before Maya could respond, her COM unit crackled with an incoming transmission on a frequency that shouldn't have been accessible to anyone outside her team. Maya, don't trust him. The voice was unmistakable. Blackwood. Harlow's expression shifted to one of genuine surprise. She's here? Not physically, Blackwood's voice continued. But I've been tracking Harlow's new operation for months. The threat he's showing you is real, but his proposed solution isn't. He's still trying to build a predictive system that will ultimately compromise special operations autonomy. Maya kept her weapon trained on Harlow while addressing Blackwood. Where have you been? Building something different. Not a system to predict special operations, but a network to protect their unpredictability. The other Spectre handlers joined me after you helped break SOI's original system. Harlow moved toward the terminal, but Maya gestured for him to step back. The new threat, she said. Who's behind it? Former SOI developers who took fragments of the predictive technology when the original network collapsed. Blackwood explained. They've sold it to various interested parties, criminal organizations, terrorist groups, and at least 2 hostile intelligence services. But unlike Harlow, they don't want to optimize special operations, Maya realized. They want to destroy them by making their predictability a vulnerability. Exactly. And Harlow's new system, while ostensibly designed to counter this threat, would actually centralize that vulnerability. One system with visibility into all special operations would become the ultimate target. Maya looked back at Harlow, seeing his project with new clarity. You're still making the same mistake. You think the solution to predictability is better prediction when it's actually greater unpredictability. Harlow's expression hardened. Unpredictability without coordination is chaos. What Blackwood is proposing would fragment special operations even further. No, Blackwood countered. What I'm proposing is preserving human judgment, while providing just enough connectivity to prevent exploitation without creating a central point of failure. The terminal screen suddenly changed, showing a different network, a decentralized web of connections that looked organic rather than structured. This is the Guardian Network, Blackwood explained. Former Spectre handlers working with trusted special operations personnel to create unpredictable counter-protocols. No central database, no predictive algorithms, just human experience and intuition shared through secure channels. Maya studied the display, seeing how the network operated not through predictive technology, but through human connection. Each node represented a person, not a server experience rather than algorithms. Lieutenant, Harlow said quietly, what Blackwood is proposing is a return to the past human judgment without technological enhancement. Noble, but ultimately insufficient against the threats we face. Or exactly what's needed, Maya countered. Because what makes special operations truly special isn't their technology, it's the human judgment behind it. She made her decision. My team has taken control of this facility. Harlow, you're coming with us for debriefing. And then what? Harlow asked. Will you dismantle this system too, leaving special operations vulnerable to a threat they don't even know exists? No, Maya said. We're going to show them both threats, yours and the one you identified. Let them make an informed decision about how to respond. And Blackwood's alternative? Maya looked at the organic network displayed on the screen. That too. Because the future of special operations shouldn't be decided by either predictive algorithms or counter-predictive guardians. It should be decided by the operators themselves. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the Situation Room at Special Operations Command Headquarters, surrounded by representatives from every branch of the military's elite units. The evidence she had gathered, both from Harlow's facility and from Blackwood's Guardian Network, had finally convinced military leadership that they faced a fundamental threat to special operations effectiveness. The decision before us is not merely tactical but philosophical, General Harrison said, addressing the assembled commanders. Do we embrace predictive technology to enhance coordination, knowing it creates potential vulnerabilities? Do we reject it entirely in favor of pure human judgment? Or is there a middle path? Maya had been asked to present her assessment, not as a lieutenant, but as someone who had seen all sides of this conflict firsthand. The strength of special operations has always been the unique balance between structure and chaos, between protocols and intuition, she began. What we've discovered over the past 6 months is that this balance is being threatened from multiple directions. She activated the display, showing both Harlow's centralized predictive network and the threat map of operations compromised by weaponized predictability. On one side, we have those who believe the future lies in greater prediction and coordination. On the other, those who seek to exploit the predictable elements of our operations. Both represent a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes special operations effective. Maya then displayed Blackwood's Guardian Network. And here, we have a third approach, preserving human judgment while providing a framework for secure knowledge sharing, not prediction, but collective wisdom. Not algorithms, but experience. Captain Shaw, who had been promoted to oversee a new division focused on counter-predictive security, stood to join her. What Lieutenant Rodriguez is proposing is that we neither fully embrace nor fully reject predictive technology. Instead, we develop a hybrid approach that preserves the unpredictability of human judgment while leveraging technology to share insights rather than dictate decisions. The discussion that followed was intense, with passionate advocates on all sides. Some commanders saw the potential benefits of Harlow's system for preventing friendly fire and operational conflicts. Others were deeply concerned about creating a central point of vulnerability. Still others were drawn to Blackwood's more organic approach, though they questioned its scalability. As the debate continued, Maya realized that this moment represented something profound, not just a tactical decision about technology, but a recommitment to what made special operations truly special. Not their equipment or their training alone, but the unique human judgment that allowed operators to make the impossible decision in the crucial moment. When the final decision came, it wasn't what anyone had expected. Rather than choosing between the competing approaches, SOCOM established a new directive: Special Operations Decision Sovereignty. The directive acknowledged the reality of predictive technology while establishing firm boundaries around its use. Predictive systems could be used for intelligence gathering and mission planning, but operational decisions would remain firmly in human hands. The Guardian Network would be recognized and supported not as an official program, but as a valuable resource for preserving the human element in special operations. Most importantly, a new training program would be established, one focused specifically on countering predictability, on teaching operators to recognize when they were falling into patterns that could be exploited, and on developing the kind of genuine unpredictability that no algorithm could anticipate. Maya was asked to help lead this program, bringing her unique experience with both predictive technology and counter-predictive tactics to a new generation of operators. 6 months later, she stood in front of her first class at the newly established Center for Tactical Unpredictability. The room was filled with operators from every special operations branch, experienced professionals who had come to learn how to preserve their most valuable asset, their human judgment. As Maya began her opening lecture, she noticed a familiar figure sitting in the back corner of the room, 4 steps from the wall, directly under a light panel. She hadn't seen Blackwood since that day in Thailand, but here she was, observing silently just as she had done in Maya's classroom all those months ago. Their eyes met briefly, and Blackwood gave an almost imperceptible nod of approval before returning her attention to the class. The silent observer was watching again, but this time not as a mystery to be solved, but as a guardian ensuring that what they were building would preserve, rather than compromise, the human element in special operations. Maya turned her attention back to her class. The most dangerous threat to special operations today isn't inadequate equipment or insufficient training, it's predictability. When our decisions become algorithmic, when we follow patterns that can be anticipated and exploited, we lose the very advantage that makes special operations effective. She activated the main display, showing examples of operations that had been compromised by predictive technology. Our goal in this program isn't to make you reject protocols or training. It's to help you recognize when to follow them and when to break them, to develop the kind of genuine unpredictability that comes not from randomness, but from deeper intuition and judgment. A hand raised from the middle of the room. "Lieutenant, how do we know if we're being truly unpredictable or just random?" Maya smiled, remembering how she had asked Blackwood a similar question once. True unpredictability isn't about being random. It's about making the decision that emerges from your experience and intuition rather than from a playbook or pattern. It's about being authentically human in your judgment. As the class proceeded, Maya felt a profound sense of purpose. What had begun as a mystery, a silent woman who never spoke in briefings until Navy SEALs started taking her orders had evolved into a movement to preserve the soul of special operations. The silent observer had shown her that the most powerful force in special operations wasn't technology or protocols, but the irreplaceable human capacity for judgment that no algorithm could ever fully replicate or predict. 1 year later, reports began emerging of a shift in special operations effectiveness worldwide. Operations that should have been compromised somehow succeeded. Teams that should have been predictable proved impossible to anticipate. Special operations were becoming truly special again, not because of advanced technology or enhanced coordination, but because they had reclaimed the unpredictability that made them effective in the first place. When Maya received her promotion to lieutenant commander, she found a small package waiting on her desk. Inside was a simple challenge coin with no military insignia or unit designation, just the words "Guardian of Human Judgment" inscribed. Around the edge, there was no note, no explanation needed. She knew it had come from Blackwood, a reminder of the silent commitment they shared to preserve the human element in a world increasingly dominated by algorithms and prediction. Maya placed the coin in her pocket, a tangible reminder of the lesson she now taught to every class that passed through her program. In special operations, as in life, true strength comes not from following patterns, but from having the courage to break them when necessary, to make the unpredictable decision that no algorithm could ever anticipate. The silent observer had taught her that sometimes the most powerful statement isn't made with technology or weapons, but with the quiet courage to preserve human judgment in an increasingly predictable world. As Maya looked out at the operators in her classroom, the next generation of guardians, against predictability, she knew that the work would never truly be finished. There would always be those who sought to predict and control, to replace human judgment with algorithms. But there would also always be those who understood the irreplaceable value of human unpredictability, the silent observers watching from the corners, ensuring that the heart and soul of special operations remained truly human. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.